Hey Broken Tee Society, my name's Ryan Hager and I'm the Director of Instruction at Plainfield Country Club in Edison, New Jersey. Today we're going to be talking about what I would call the basics of, or maybe the foundation of a good golf swing or your golf game. Specifically, we're talking about ball striking, and within that, ideas surrounding setting up with proper alignment, perceiving the target. I'm going to get into that quite a bit here, as well as then organizing your path and your face around that. And I think it's much easier to make consistent contact. To be consistent seems to be the holy grail of golf, and I think a lot of this is what goes into that when you talk about sort of the planning that goes into a shot. The majority of this, I think, is going to have to do with alignment. I used the word perception a minute ago. I think standing with your feet squared up to like a T-square like this is a nice organized way to practice. But if you don't know how to perceive where the target is as you are over the ball, I think you will consistently have trouble getting your ball to go where you want it. The biggest reason for that is that our eyes are inside of the ball as we stand over the shot. The shorter the club is, the less that's true, but as you go to longer and longer and longer shots, your eyes and body are moving away from the target line. As this happens, what will change is what the view of your target and your shot shape are going to look like. I like to do this. It's called a visual acuity test. I learned this from a very smart guy named James Hong. And all it is a perfectly straight line of alignment rods extending down the target line from my ball to the flag that I'm going to be hitting at. I also have one on the ground, and then obviously the two by my feet. What these are here for is to give me a sense of what straight looks like as I'm standing to the ball. As you stand behind the ball on the golf course to size up your shot, I don't think it's that challenging to find straight lines and get a good sense of where your ball and your target line are. But then once you stand to the ball, things start to change a lot, again, because your eyes move inside the target line. And so as I stand over this shot, this line no longer appears to be straight. I can now see each individual stick, and what straight looks like to me is that it's more out to the right than I might have thought without any alignment rods there. What I see in the distance is that my target, the red flag or close to it, is quite a bit to the left of my target line, of my sort of perceived target line. And I think the challenge this creates is that if you are hitting the ball where you see the target, more often than not, you will start the ball to the left. The only way to then make that shot go to the target is to fade it or slice it. And I'm somewhat convinced that's why a lot of people end up with an over-the-top, open-face pattern of swinging, is they are trying to hit it to the target that they see rather than the target that actually exists. And so if you can get a good sense of, one, where is straight? Straight is here. Straight is also here. And then two, develop a club path and face relationship relative to straight to get your start line and your curvature organized. It'll be a lot easier to see your trajectory before you hit, to anticipate where the ball needs to start. And I think doing this is a great test and just experience to see kind of what that all looks like. I like this magnetic club face stick because that'll also give me a sense of how far right a square face sort of seems to be. This black stick does not, it looks like it's 20 degrees open to the yellow stick that's laying on the ground. And as I make those two sticks parallel, from my view, this now looks like a parallel stick coming off of the club face. The viewer can see that that's actually quite a bit to the left. This is what straight looks like. To me, that looks quite a bit right. That's what open looks like, obviously. And so more than anything, what I think this teaches you is how to adjust your eyes, where to sort of look to see your trajectory window. You hear great players talk about that a lot, their start lines and where the window that they want to see the ball come out of. And I think that's a really important place to start. I do think having your body segments, your feet, knees, hips, shoulders, your eyes, all of those things are really, really important to have aligned. But I think that's all for naught if you don't know sort of what the shot is going to look like while it's flying through the air. So more than anything, that's what this is here to help you with. Now, I wouldn't hit balls with all of this stuff here. It's borderline in your way. So what you're going to transition to, maybe after you've done a little testing with this, is you might take the first few sticks away. You might only really need one of these. And then I would start with choosing a curve. Once you've kind of got a sense of, all right, here's the straight target line. Am I going to play a draw or a fade? I think you need to choose a curve to have a stock shot. I think straight shots are hard to come by. A lot of my teaching pro friends and I call them unicorns because you just don't see them very often. It requires an absolute zero face and an absolute zero path with absolutely zero wind. And I don't think that really occurs very often when you're in the heat of battle. So choosing one curve and trying to achieve that every single time is a much more predictable and consistent way to play golf. I myself play a draw, and so when I do exercises like this, my objective is to start the ball a little to the right of these sticks so that when the ball curves, it lands on target. Draws have to start to the right and fades have to start to the left. And so what I would start with is a square alignment with the target line stick here. This is parallel to my target. This is 90 degrees or perpendicular to my target. And my first few shots, once I'm squared up and once I've got my sort of launch sticks, is just to hit a few balls trying to hit draws at my target. If you go through this part of the exercise and you find that with a square alignment like this, you have a really hard time starting the ball on line. Maybe your ball flight is a draw, but it's starting too far left. That's a time when I would start to consider closing your stance. That might be the easiest way to get the ball to start launching on line. For me, I can stand pretty square to the ball, square to the target line, and launch the ball right with a draw. If I was to try to play a fade and shift my stock ball flight more to a fade, on day one, I struggle mightily doing that with a square stance. If I was going to try to learn to change my stock shot to a fade on day one, coming from a draw, I'm not sure I could do that, at least not easily, with the same setup. So on the first day of shifting to more of a fade stock shot, I'm going to open my stance. I would probably want the ball more forward, which makes it a little easier for me to swing the club to the left to create some left to right spin. But I would want to do some smart things to make sure that my ball is now going to launch to the left of these sticks before it fades right, rather than starting to the right of the sticks before it draws left. That said, I think for the most part, you should go through the golf course playing one curve or the other. I think it's important, if you want to get to scratch, that you need to know how to change your ball flight. You need to know how to hit the other curve. But in my opinion, that's more of a, in case of emergency, break glass situation. I think it sounds pretty sexy to think about shaping the ball around the course all day, but in general, you are going to be better at one or the other, and that's what you should choose when you're playing. It will make it easier to keep the face consistent as you're making contact. You will be much tighter with your dispersion just hitting one shot. However, if there's a tree in your way and that shot's not a good option, you do need to know what adjustments need to be made in order to hit the shot that's demanded of you. I also think that not everybody has to have the same stance alignment when they're standing to their stock shot. Some people, like myself, play a stock push draw with very square body alignments. I also know some really nice players who play a stock draw with a slightly closed face, slightly closed stance. I also know some really good faders who stand to the ball with a closed stance. I know some drawers who stand to the ball with an open stance. The thing that makes those people consistent is that they set up the same way every time for themselves. They don't set up the same way that necessarily every other golfer does. So I think your alignment relative to the target line is somewhat optional as long as it's the same every time. That's what consistency is. I think every golfer needs to see the target line and see the ball flight before they hit properly. And the only way to really calibrate your eyes and your view of where your ball needs to go is to practice with some alignment sticks downrange like this. This can be a pretty eye-opening experience, and I have found that it is one of the most critical things that you need to be able to do to go out on the golf course and perform.